What's up everyone, Tim here from Everyday Tactical Vids. We're looking at another knife today. Today it is the Ontario Knife Company Rat 7. Really nice blade, big, strong. It's going to be an interesting review to some degree because I was actually reviewing this about a week ago and I was working on making a fire in wet conditions when it had rained the night before and it was kind of raining on and off that day. But I got called out on an emergency like right before I got to actually make the fire. So what I'm going to do now is actually roll in footage from that whole day, show you what the knife looks like in use. So we did some batoning, some chopping, some smaller wood, some smaller work on, detail work on wood. And then after you see that, I'll kind of come back to today and then we'll talk about my thoughts on it. But I've been very impressed with it. It's been fun to use. And one thing I'll say right off the bat is that for the size of this knife, so it's the Rat 7, 7-inch blade, I found it very manageable. I prefer usually a 5-inch blade. But this one, especially with the little choil here, so you can choke up and do some of that detail work, it was very manageable. The handle's comfortable for me. It's not as contoured as like a real bushcraft knife, so it's not rounded. It's rounded on the edges, but flatter in general. But I still found it very comfortable to use. One thing I can tell you is that having used a fire steel that was pretty beat up, so it was just kind of on the last legs, and I thought I'll give it one more shot, and I'm gonna have to get rid of it. But it was hard, but because of the size of the blade, to get that small fire steel to go. So I'm going to tell you that if you do want to have this knife and use a fire steel with this knife, make sure it's a big fire steel, or if it's a smaller fire steel, make sure it's not worn down, because that was a lot of work to try to get a spark off that tiny little fire steel. But let's roll in that other footage and then we'll come back and let you know some thoughts having used it then and used it a little bit today as well. Let's just give you a real quick rundown of the specs. As you can tell, we have a black blade. There's a tan handle. There is a powder coat finish on the blade. Your blade thickness is 0.19 inches. Your blade length is 7 inches. And your overall length is going to be 12 inches. This blade does have a flat grind. It's 1095 carbon steel. It does come with a MOLLE compatible ballistic nylon sheath, which we'll show you that up close, as well as what it looks like to actually have it on my belt. And your Rockwell hardness rating for this knife is between 55 and 57. Here's a look at the knife in the sheath, and as you can see, ballistic nylon, there's this clip here on the front. Open that up and you've got storage space for, sharpener, ferro rod, other things like that you might want to put into the sheath. You do have some lashing down here on the bottom. Let me flip this over and show you. First is that this is where you're going to run your belt through there, and that's stitched in, so you're not going to be like unloosening Velcro and then attaching it. And then you got your MOLLE webbing, so you can attach this, run this through MOLLE, and then here is some cordage if you want to tie it around your leg, and certainly that's cordage that could be used for other purposes as well. Pretty simple sheath, but it does the job. A lot of people want to see Kydex for the Rat model knives, Rat 357, whatever it might be. That will up the price. So instead of paying around 70 bucks, you're probably going to pay closer to 85, 90 bucks, 100 bucks if you add in the Kydex sheath. Certainly, if you want to do something aftermarket, you could do that for the Rat knives. Here's a look at the sheath actually attached to my belt. So there is a loop here, and then we've got that MOLLE webbing on the back. Your 2 snaps, and so you're just going to unsnap one, unsnap the other, and then the knife comes out easily. I will tell you that sometimes when I put the knife in, I gotta kind of adjust, it seems like, where the tip is landing in order to get it to sit all the way down. And if you can still see OKC USA, you're not going to be able to get these snaps across. So you got to get that down into the sheath and then put these across and snap them down in place. There is no retention on the sheath other than these snaps, so don't think that if you're walking around with the snaps undone that there's anything keeping it in. If you take these 2 snaps off and just turn the sheath upside down, the knife will slide out. So as you'd probably expect, the Rat 7's a pretty good chopper. I'm definitely going to put a lanyard on that just so I can grip back a little bit farther, with a little sturdier grip, and I think gloves would help a little bit. It wasn't like flying all over my, out of my hands, but if I had a lanyard and some gloves on, I think I'd have even better grip. All right, we'll do a little batoning here to get to some of that dry wood on the inside of these pieces that I got. Hopefully a big knot on that side, so we're going to flip it over here. I'm going to work on choking up here on the Rat 7, putting my hand in that little choil, my finger in that choil, and then we'll see if we can get some real fine shavings here. And this wood it's just barely damp, but very soft, and you can see, I mean, that's easy work. And the knife, despite its overall large size, feels like it's very much under control as I'm doing this. I don't feel like I'm struggling to just to make the knife do what I want to do. Sometimes you get a big blade and it just feels like you're all over the place. So there's some fine little feathers there. So there's some footage of the knife in use, and we'll wrap up now and just offer you some final thoughts on the Ontario Knife Company Rat 7. First thing I'll say is that, again, the word I would use is very manageable considering the size of the knife. I do find it more comfortable with gloves on to use this knife, but still I'm able to do more of that detail work and some of that bigger chopping, more aggressive chopping with this knife. I will again say that I want to put a lanyard on there. I think that'll make it just easier to, get my hand out a little bit further like that for some of those chopping tasks. The second thing I'll say is I'm generally not like a one tool kind of guy as far as like, one knife that's going to do everything for me. So give me a medium or a smaller size knife and an axe, or maybe a little bit larger size knife and a saw, and now I'm feeling like I got a bunch of tools I can do stuff with in the woods, bushcrafting, wilderness survival, etc. But if you have to choose a one knife option, I was generally like a 5-inch blade kind of guy, and now I'm saying 5, maybe up to 7, because having used the Rat, I've enjoyed using it. So it's not 1/4 inch. So maybe for a big chopper and a lot of batoning, people would want a 1/4 inch knife. It's not a 1/4 inch knife, but it does seem very sturdy. It is big. It's got a nice long blade, and yeah, it's pretty. I've used it aggressively, and I've been impressed with it. The flat grind. Some people like that. A lot of people like a scandi grind for their bushcraft or their survival knives. It's kind of a preference thing. But yeah, if you have to do a one knife option or a one tool option, I think the Rat 7 might be something really that you want to consider, and also your price point. You're not paying a ton of money. You're not paying $250 for that one knife option. You're paying a decent amount of money, less than $100 in general for the Rat 7, depending on where you pick it up. If I were going to change the Rat 7 at all, if they were going to do a version 2.0, here's some thoughts. I might make the choil here just a tiny bit bigger. It's good for when I don't have gloves on, but maybe they made it a tiny bit bigger when I had gloves on. My finger wouldn't be resting so close, or kind of on the edge of the end of the blade there. The second thing I'll say is that they might want to think about doing a 1/4 inch option and then keeping that flat grind. So, wider at the top, but still that flat grind as opposed to wide and then into a scandi grind. That could be another option. The pommel, they may want to extend it just a tiny bit as well, for some of those crushing tasks. I actually like the fact that they don't put a whole lot of contouring. There's one nice little swoop you can see there in the handle. I wouldn't change that. I wouldn't add a whole lot of palm swell and other things. I think as is, it's quite comfortable. And then jimping is one of those preference things. Some people like it, some people don't. This, I think, especially with gloves on, this feels like appropriate jimping for me. It doesn't feel like it's too aggressive. So, as I've always thought about Ontario Knife Company, their knives are very reasonably. So as I've often said and thought about Ontario Knife Company, their knives are really reasonably priced, and you get excellent quality for what you're paying. So it's not like you're going to go to Walmart and pick it up for $25. But if you're willing to spend a little bit more money, but not have to go into that, $200, $300 option for an outdoor or survival knife. Ontario Knife Company is absolutely a company that you want to be checking out. Once again, we've been looking at the Rat 7. Thanks for checking out the review here on YouTube. Please share this video, like, and subscribe to our channel here on YouTube. I want to let you know we're also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr as well. See you guys soon with more videos. Take care.